It's an undeniable fact that inclusivity makes games better. It shouldn't matter what level of ability or mobility you have, games are for everyone, and one of the big pushes in the industry of late is making sure that options are available for everyone. In this regard, Celeste, a devilish Twitch-based platformer, is extremely generous. Through its assist mode, players have access to an array of options that tailor the game experience to their needs and wants. You can adjust the number of air dashes you can do before needing to touch ground. You can make it so that you never run out of stamina while climbing things. You can slow down time to allow breathing room between jumps. You can even opt to laugh in the face of death itself, bouncing over pitfalls and clinging onto venomous cankers with reckless abandon. Options like these are greatly appreciated for many of us because Celeste is a hard game. Its intended experience is one where success echoes that rare rush of exhilaration you get as you triumph over incredible odds. But it's kind of hard to achieve that experience when you keep dying all the time. Honestly, without Celeste's assist mode, I don't think I would have got very far in the game. With it, I was able to glide gracefully from peak to peak, drinking in all that wonderful art and the game's surprisingly touching story. I went hand in hand with a young woman on a journey of self-discovery, in pursuit of the exorcism of personal demons, fighting the elements, the other denizens of the mountain, and even herself. It had taken assist mode to get me to the summit, the denouement of an incredibly personal tale, but I was there, by Madeline's side. However, while I had shared her journey, I couldn't share her elation. Completing the game this way just didn't feel good. One of the big downsides of giving players a veritable bounty of options in play is that you no longer control the type of shared experience they have. Death of the author is a much more complicated idiom in a medium that often includes the player's input in the art. In this regard, I feel like developers Matt Thorson and Noel Berry have provided a best of both worlds scenario. Assist mode is out of sight, tucked away neatly in the options menu with a giant warning sign as you go to activate it, making sure you're aware that this is not the intended means of play. But it's there, and it's readily available from minute one, without punishment. You can unlock every achievement, freely engage with every aspect of the game with or without it. Even the language used to define its contents is great. It's assistance, not cheating. Crucially, once activated, you can freely switch on and off the various modifiers at your pleasure. It can be a just-in-case or a permanent fixture, and it allows you to enjoy the game you bought with your hard-earned cash, even if it isn't necessarily in the way its makers suggest. Celeste's creators made a game that revels in biting challenge and gave it an easily accessible workaround, and that is unequivocally a good thing. But it doesn't stop the fact that I ended the game feeling deflated about the whole experience. Maybe in this instant, these modes of assistance were too generous. I know how that sounds. I was the one who activated this optional feature. I was the one who sought fit to keep the modifiers on throughout. I was the one who chose to burden myself with a lazy behavioural maxim instead of even barely trying to engage with the challenges before me. It's a bit of a toys out the pram kind of utterance, true, but there is valid concern here that I believe draws on one crucial question. Is Celeste's appeal informed exclusively by its difficulty? To which I would argue, no. It was while playing another indie title that I finally clocked what it was that soured me on an otherwise exceptional interactive work. Iconoclasts is an extremely well-made game that, as with Celeste, allows you to play from the start free from the burdens of challenge. In this case it's called Relaxed Mode, which translates in-game as an ever-unchanging health meter. You still take damage, per se, but it isn't reflected in the user interface or the rude interruption of a game over screen. You won't die, but it still has a discernible effect on your time with the game. This specific element of the mode is important because, again, like Celeste, Iconoclast is a game about exploration and navigation. While part of the fun comes from laying waste to the kingdoms of man and beast with your trusty wrench and blaster, at its core, Iconoclasts feels more like a puzzle game, where, again, like Celeste, triumph comes from figuring out what to do in order to get from one side of the room to the other, and then actually doing it. Where Iconoclasts avoids the issues I faced with Celeste comes down to how well defined its means of traversal are within the overarching construct of playing the game, and how its mode of assistance impacts that effect. Essentially, relaxed mode doesn't run the risk of circumventing the actual point of being there in the first place, whereas Celeste's assist mode does. There's no denying that in the moment, being able to burst around the screen like a Super Saiyan without a care in the world is pretty damn satisfying. Being able to look at the layout of a room and then just throw caution to the wind as you beam away towards the final stretch is a great in-the-moment feeling. But it's missing that vital component that makes Celeste so compelling in the first place. It's about overcoming obstacles. Doing so is not only what makes it satisfying, it's thematically relevant. Being able to freely sail over everything didn't feel good for me because I was effectively disengaged with the act of playing the game. This isn't an issue of difficulty, because as we see with Iconoclasts, you can remove challenge but still offer the physical satisfaction of what some might derisively call going through the motions. We see this used to great effect in games where the player being the one to pull the proverbial trigger elicits a very different, more active type of engagement compared to just watching it happen, and it's not always informed by quantifiable challenge. Iconoclasts was no less satisfying an experience because there was no risk of death. If anything, it freed me up to better appreciate how well this game world was built. I was able to do so because I still had to go through the motions. With Celeste, I quickly attuned myself to a method of play that avoided physical interaction with the environment, because I saw no reason to, given my newfound powers. With every room entered, I saw my starting point and my exit as essential artifacts contributing towards my ultimate goal. Everything in between might as well have been static. Disengaged from Celeste's thematic resonance, I was now playing the part in a plight defined purely by the pursuit of progress. Alliteration aside, what surface-level similarities this concept may have with the developer's goals, it is assuredly not the intended experience. This is what I mean by Celeste's assist mode being too generous. I don't see a problem with removing challenge from a game if needs be. Lord knows in recent years I myself have been short on time and even shorter on patience. But if in doing so you block out much of what makes the game what it is in the first place, you end up doing it and yourself a disservice. So what's the solution here then? It's hard to say really, because removing options feels cruel. And you can't force the player to engage with the problem solving as intended without fundamentally altering the structure of the game, or opting into mechanical restrictions that go against the point of this mode in the first place. In Celeste, that physical interaction with the world is an essential piece of the puzzle. It's a precise, punishing, but ultimately rewarding game that offers the player a one-to-one symbiosis with the environment, a connection that ties directly into the subtext of the story. Offer too much freedom of movement, and you might as well have taken a helicopter to the summit. There's no doubt in my mind that Celeste's assist mode is a fundamental good. It bridges the gap between the gluttons for punishment and those of us who enjoy not wanting to throw our controllers at the screen, and more importantly, it's a much coveted accessibility option for those who physically could not play the game otherwise. Its inclusion and the degree of control it offers the player should be taken as a gold standard by which others can hold themselves to. What we can learn from this, however, is the role that such options play within the wider framework of a game, how well they mesh with the core experience, what their use takes away. I firmly believe that difficulty has no place at the core of a game's identity. Its role in the experience is to elevate that which is there already, not to take its place. Celeste excels at what it does because of this distinction. Those core mechanics are so finely honed that it almost demands some kind of system to validate mastery. And certainly the game offers a lot for those who want more. Optional rooms containing well-hidden collectibles and remixed levels designed to test the limits of even the most skilled player. Everything still available to those who want a more casual experience. With the inclusion of assist mode, Celeste's creators have made a pretty big statement about the value of letting people in. And perhaps in this case, this is one of those problems that shouldn't really be solved. But even so, it's worth thinking about how we can better amalgamate these two worlds together in the future. Engaging with the game as intended matters. Letting everyone engage with the game matters. These two needn't be mutually exclusive.